I grab a pizza and visit my BFBC. He was sick, but his roommate shows me my BF has company. Oh boy! The pizza box burned my hands as I stood outside Jake's apartment, rain hammering my umbrella like it was trying to drown my good intentions. I'd spent my last 20 bucks on his favorite pepperoni and mushroom, picturing him curled up in bed, miserable with the flu he'd texted me about. But when his roommate, Max, opened the door with a smirk that screamed trouble, I knew I'd walked into a scene that would shred my heart into confetti. Max didn't say a word at first, just stepped aside and gestured toward the living room like he was unveiling a bad plot twist. The apartment smelled of cheap beer and Jake's cedarwood cologne, the kind that used to make my knees weak. Now it just made my stomach churn. I heard laughter, his laughter, bright and careless, followed by a woman's voice, soft and teasing, like they were sharing some private joke. My grip on the pizza box tightened, the cardboard buckling under my fingers. I rounded the corner, and there he was, Jake, sprawled on the couch, not a trace of sickness on him, grinning at a woman with sleek black hair and a smile that didn't belong in my story. Lila Jake's voice cracked as he scrambled to his feet, knocking over a beer can that fizzed onto the rug. The woman, her name was Tara. I'd later learn froze, her hand still resting on his arm. Her eyes darted to me, then to the pizza box, and I swear I saw a flicker of pity before she looked away. Jake's face was a mess of guilt and panic, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "This isn't what it looks like," he blurted, but the lie was so thin it practically dissolved in the air. I wanted to scream, to throw the pizza at his head and watch the pepperoni scatter like my trust, but my feet were glued to the floor. Max, still lingering by the door, coughed awkwardly. Lila, I thought you should know," he mumbled, scratching the back of his neck. His eyes were apologetic, but there was a glint of something else, satisfaction. Maybe, like he'd been waiting to drop this bomb. I didn't know whether to thank him or punch him. 2 hours earlier, I'd been in my tiny studio apartment, scrolling through Jake's texts, feeling like death. He'd written, followed by a sad emoji that now felt like a mockery. I'd pictured him shivering under his quilt, his sandy hair a mess, needing me. So I'd canceled my plans, ignored the stack of work emails piling up, and hauled myself across town in the pouring rain to play the good girlfriend. I'd even stopped at Tony's Pizzeria, where the line was out the door, just to get him that damn pizza, all because I loved him, or thought I did. Now, when standing in his living room, I felt like the punchline of a joke I hadn't heard. Tara stood up, smoothing her skirt, her face a careful mask of neutrality. "I should go," she said, her voice low, like she was trying not to make the scene worse, but her presence was already a wrecking ball. She grabbed her jacket and slipped past me, her perfume trailing like a taunt. Jake didn't stop her. He just stood there, staring at me, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Lila, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off. "Explain what? That you're miraculously cured?" My voice was sharp, slicing through the haze of my shock. "Or that you forgot to mention your company when you were begging for soup and sympathy?" The pizza box hit the coffee table with a thud, grease soaking through the bottom. I didn't care. I was shaking. Not from the cold, but from the betrayal that burned hotter than the pizza ever could. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his tell when he was cornered. "It's not like that. Tara's just a friend. She came over to, bring me some notes from work." He gestured vaguely toward a notebook on the table, but it was pristine, untouched. A prop in his pathetic excuse. Max snorted from the corner, and I shot him a look. "You knew about this?" I asked, my voice low but dangerous. Max shrugged, his lanky frame slouched against the wall. "I told you he wasn't sick," he said, almost too casually. "Saw Tara sneak in an hour ago. Figured you deserved a heads up." I didn't know whether to trust Max. He and Jake had been roommates for years, but there was always a weird tension between them, like Max was perpetually annoyed by Jake's charm. Maybe he was just being honest. Maybe he was stirring the pot. Either way, he'd handed me the truth, and it was a jagged pill to swallow. "Jake," I said, my voice steadier now, though my heart was hammering, "why didn't you just tell me? Why the lie? I hated how small I sounded. How much I still wanted an answer that would make this okay." But his silence was louder than any excuse he could have mustered. He stepped toward me, reaching out, but I backed away. "Lila, I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know." Things got complicated. His eyes were pleading, but they weren't the eyes I'd fallen for 6 months ago. The ones that sparkled when we stayed up all night talking about our dreams. These eyes were tired, dishonest, and I hated how much they still pulled at me. "Complicated," I laughed. "Bitter and raw? You don't get to call this complicated. You lied to me. You let me think you needed me while you were here playing house with someone else." My voice broke on the last word, and I hated myself for it. I wasn't going to cry in front of him. Not here, not now. Max cleared his throat again, like he was trying to remind us he was still there. "I'm gonna grab a beer," he muttered, slipping into the kitchen. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. The world was crumbling, and Max was worried about his drink. I turned back to Jake. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer, just looked at the floor like it held all the secrets he couldn't say. "How long, Jake?" I pressed, louder now, the question clawing at my throat. "A few weeks," he admitted finally, his voice so soft I almost missed it. "It's not serious. It's just, I don't know. Lila, I messed up. A few weeks?" The words hit like a punch. Weeks of him texting me goodnight, calling me babe, planning our weekend trip to the coast. Weeks of me believing we were building something real. I thought of the nights I'd stayed up late, worrying about his stress at work, sending him playlists to cheer him up. All while he was with her, I grabbed my bag, my hands trembling. "You don't get to mess up like this," I said, my voice steady now, fueled by a rage I hadn't known I could feel. "You don't get to lie and call it a mistake. You made a choice, Jake, and now I'm making mine." I walked out, leaving the pizza behind, the rain soaking me the second I stepped outside. My umbrella was still in the apartment, but I didn't care. The cold felt right, like it matched the ache in my chest. I walked 2 blocks before the tears came, hot and unstoppable, mixing with the rain on my face. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Away from Jake, from the life I'd thought we had, from the version of myself who'd believed in him. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment, my eyes puffy and my phone buzzing with Jake's texts. "I'm sorry. Can we talk? I love you." I deleted them without reading the rest. I didn't want his apologies. I wanted the truth, and I'd already seen it, laid bare in his living room. I called my best friend, Mia, and told her everything. She showed up with coffee and a fierce determination to make me laugh. "He's an idiot," she said, handing me a latte. "And you're a queen. Don't let him dim your shine." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of self-doubt. We spent the day binge-watching bad reality TV, and for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe. But the hurt didn't vanish. It lingered, sharp and stubborn, popping up when I saw a pizza box in the trash or heard a song Jake used to hum. I kept replaying that moment in his apartment, wondering what I'd missed, what signs I'd ignored. Was I too trusting, too naive? Or was Jake just too good at hiding who he really was? A week later, I ran into Max at a coffee shop. He looked surprised to see me, his usual smirk replaced by something softer. "Hey, Lila," he said, shifting his weight. "You okay?" I nodded, though it wasn't entirely true. "Thanks for, telling me." I said the words awkward but necessary. I didn't want to see it, but I needed to. He shrugged, his eyes meeting mine for a moment. "You deserved better." "Still do." There was no smugness in his voice, just a quiet honesty that caught me off guard. I didn't know what to make of it, but it felt like a small step toward healing. Life moved on, as it always does. I threw myself into work, started running again, and even signed up for a pottery class I'd always wanted to try. The pain didn't disappear, but it dulled, like a bruise fading over time. I learned to laugh without forcing it, to trust my own strength, to see myself as more than someone's girlfriend. Jake's betrayal had broken something in me, but it had also cracked open a space for something new, something stronger. Looking back, I don't hate Jake. I hate what he did, how he made me question my worth. But I'm grateful for the truth, even if it came wrapped in pain. It taught me to listen to my gut, to value myself enough to walk away when someone shows me they're not worth staying for. And maybe, just maybe, it reminded me that love isn't about clinging to someone who doesn't choose you. It's about choosing yourself first. What do you think? Was I right to walk away? Or should I have given Jake a chance to explain? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear where you stand on this.